Let's go!
Belief is a thread interwoven throughout the life of Umbereen Inayet. In her foundational years, she believed she wasn't worthy of anything great. With humble roots from Scarborough, one day belief came in the form of a social worker, spurring her to apply for an artistic producing job to transform the city of Toronto. She told Umbereen, "I believe in you." This changed everything. Umbereen, after all, was a great-granddaughter of the man who wrote Pakistan's national anthem. Now Umbereen's art has been featured across Toronto with international shows in India. From Nuit Blanche to Death of the Sun, Drake to Director X, Umbereen is redefining the face of contemporary art, one masterpiece at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, Umbereen Inayet.
Straight out of the T-Dot.
That's what it is.
Live from the 6 boroughs.
Don't go nowhere.
For sure. Welcome to Standing in the 6 with your host, Constantine, and special co-host guest, Neil Forrester.
You let us know whenever we're on.
Yeah.
And we'll get this thing kicking. All right. Good morning, everyone. Today is a very special day because, well, we don't have Mike, but we have someone that's actually what we call Mike 2.0, and that's Mr. Neil Forrester right now.
Yep. Thank you. New and improved.
New and improved. As many of you may not know, but Neil was actually on the show where we had him on, and he was absolutely incredible. The man with the golden Rolodex. And bro, I'll tell you this right now. You reached out to me yesterday about, if we had any, need for radios and you had a contact.
Yeah.
You know what was going through my head? It's like, you're an amazing guy, man. I mean, you truly are trying to help people through contacts. I mean, I just think it's an amazing quality. You're spending time to do that.
I generally enjoy it.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like not even in business, just in life in general.
I mean, that's such an amazing quality because a lot of people, there's all self. There's just self-involved. And the fact that you do that, I mean, you truly are like opening up these connections. That makes it absolutely incredible. I mean,
thank you.
It's very helpful, man.
Call me Mike.
Well, speaking of Mike,
These glasses are in honor of Mike, by the way.
Are they? Well, speaking of Mike actually, he's in St. John's, Newfoundland right now, and he's filming a show, and I can't remember what it's called. All I know is that he sent me some pictures. He's driving around in a Porsche 911.
It's called Isa Biza Bearza Biza.
Have you been to Newfoundland before?
Jerry, have you been?
Newfoundland, no, just Halifax and area.
Okay, so this is my thing.
Yeah.
True. If you had to pick anywhere in Canada to go for one weekend, and I've been across Canada more times than I can count.
Okay.
I can only count to 10, but I've been across Canada a lot. St. John's, Newfoundland for a weekend is the best place you'll ever go in Canada for a weekend.
Really?
Incredible.
I always get this thrown out with my wife. She goes, we need to explore Canada and see what else is out there.
You do.
And I'm thinking, it's Canada. What really else is out there?
You will be floored. And that's, your wife is right. We spend so much time and money going to the States or Cuba or the Caribbean or wherever we go and spend our money outside of the country, which is great. But then you ask people, have you been across Canada? And they're like, no. They've gone to Ireland, they've gone to Scotland. And then, there's this place in Newfoundland that's identical to Ireland. That's one of the biggest tourist attractions out there. It costs $500 to fly out there. It's a 2.5-hour flight, 3-hour flight max. It's It's actually considered the twin of some area out in Ireland.
Okay.
Gross National Park or something like that. But anyways, Canada. That's it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Really?
Oh.
Now
this country is so beautiful. I mean, I have taken friends to Vancouver with me, and these are some really rough around the edge dudes, just great guys.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And as we're flying into Vancouver, they're like, "Oh, it's beautiful here." Like they're not guys you would expect, to talk like that.
Yeah.
But just the country's so beautiful.
Now I heard that that the dialect there is so strong that you sometimes can't even understand.
It's true.
It's like Cockney for the British, apparently.
It's really kind of interesting, an interesting twang that they have. That's why I kind of made that joke. But yeah, they're like, "Hey, bye." That's the big thing. Hey, bye.
Lord Jesus, bye.
Yeah, Lord Thunder and Jesus there, bye.
Wow.
Good people, like the friendliest, nicest people, Maritimers and people in Newfoundland.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Jared,
Nicest people I ever met next to the people in Hawaii.
Really?
Yeah. When I went to Hawaii, everybody was so nice. But when I was in the East Coast, I'm like, holy crap, like everybody is nice.
I did a show, a festival in Halifax, and this guy kept talking to me. And I was he was like, "Hey, how are you?" I'm like, "I'm good." And I kind of turn around doing my thing. He's like, "So you from here?" And I'm like, "Nope." And I kind of ignored him, not intentionally. Because in Toronto we're so used to people talking in hi bye and that's it. And after about 2 minutes of him asking me questions and me sort of giving him one-word answers, I realized he just really wants to know me.
Yeah.
Like, I had to step back, and I sat with him for 10 minutes and talked.
Wow.
Just really good dude.
But that's very common in European life as well. I mean, you're walking down, like, you know, some certain places, people just stop and take time. Come in, have a drink. I mean, it's a very different, you know, speed of life.
Yeah,
You know
for
what I
sure.
mean?
Well, we don't have that here, unfortunately, in Toronto. But
No, I was scouting out there, out in the Halifaxon area, and I was in Prospect Bay, and then while I was scouting the bay itself for this TV commercial out there, I met some couple, and we were just chatting away. And when I'd finished taking my pictures, they said, "Why don't you come for dinner?" And I said, "What do you mean, come for dinner? I've got to get back." No, you got to stay for dinner. He said, "We're having lobster." He dives into the water and goes get fresh lobster, starts throwing him up on the shore, and his wife's putting him in the pot.
Wow.
That was incredible. Like, super nice people. I love it out there.
me too. I always tell people, and it's not expensive to go out there. It's 2 to 3 hour flight. I agree. It's amazing to go out there. I was just out there people don't know, but I was actually born in Moncton.
Oh, really?
However, I can't really stake claim to. I don't have any roots there. My dad and mom just lived there for 4 years.
Okay.
So I was born there 2 years into them living there. My dad was just relocated for work. So I moved back to Toronto when I was 2, and I'd never been back. So I have no friends or family there. But I went with my family about 5 years ago. And I was just like, man, it's so peaceful and calm and cool and nice. The pace is, and it's beautiful. You know,
Man.
it's really worth going. And
I'm gonna take that, yeah.
the good thing about it is you can go to like Halifax, and within a 2 to 3 hour drive, you could drive to Moncton, PEI, Peggy's Cove, like all these areas where you don't have, like it's all close proximity and amazing sort of trip to go with.
No, I'm definitely going to
Take
do
the
that.
wife and kids, you'll love it.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, look, man, I want to thank you for being our co-host today, man. And also for, being the bridge and the gateway to, helping us out, bring some exposure to this and bring some cool guests.
My pleasure.
Right now, we're going to be talking with Umbereen Inayet. And, I mean, you know her, I guess, with some business dealings or I guess friendship dealings.
Friendship. I mean, the initial way we connected was maybe through some business opportunities. Not really business, really. She just wanted to meet up and see how I could help her grow her vision with what she's trying to do.
Nice.
Through my background, and a friendship grew from that, and a mutual respect for each other grew from that.
Okay, amazing. Well, let's bring her in, man. I'm looking forward to seeing her.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's go.
To me.
Well, look, we got the amazing Umbereen Inayet. Did I say that right?
Inayet, yep.
Perfect. National award-winning artistic producer, director, and curator, and I think that's an amazing thing.
Thanks,
and
man.
I want to tap into that. First of all, let's just go right into the origin of your name.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Uh,
Sure. So Umbereen, I'm from Pakistan.
Okay.
It's a Urdu word. It means sweet smell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you.
And being someone that is actually a producer, director. I mean, you're very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, you're also the great-granddaughter of Hafiz Jilantari. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, perfect.
Clap.
Now, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Now, he was apparently a poet, and he wrote the lyrics for the national anthem.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's incredible that you're kind of stemming from this line.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find you got some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It took me a while to sort of tap into that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, because my family history is a bit complex. My dad I think was a bit ostracized from the family because he married a Christian woman and he's Muslim. So there was a bit of kerfuffles and when that happened. Having said that, when you come here to Pakistan, come here from Pakistan, my dad had to work in factories and things like that when he was an artist back home. So we would hear rumblings that we had this sort of interesting lineage because my dad was an artist. But when you're here and everyone's on their grind, you don't really dig deep into it until my great-grandfather had a stamp, created for him. So when that stamp came, my dad got it and then he started showing it to me and I started really paying attention. Like, who's this man? Like, there's a huge legacy behind him. And I think for a while I was sort of just trying to survive in the art world. So I don't think I was really, tapping into my purpose and my lineage until that stamp came out. And then I started to realize that I think when I did some more research on his life and understanding that he worked for the government and he, was surrounded by artisans and creatives, and he actually was a part of the separatist party to make Pakistan, its own nation from India, I was like, wow, he really stood for something. Speaking of, what do you stand for?
Amazing.
So when I think about the work I do, now I see it. But
Okay,
it took me a while because I was just putting the pieces together on my journey. But it wasn't until that stamp came out that it really showed me, like, this is somebody who I need to pay attention to.
When did that stamp come out? When
I
did
think
you?
About 3-4 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Seeing what your great grandfather did, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want your stand to be like? Your mark, giving what you're doing right now, leaving behind. So, your great granddaughter says, "This is what my great grandmother did." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, nice. I think I would say that she stood for the people. Like I'm in the contemporary art world, which can kind of be, a bit of a closed box in some ways. It's like literally in a white box, like the gallery world. And I think what I did was I really tried to expand it so that people from different walks of life can feel like art is for them too. So I started introducing street art, urban art, pop culture, and music into the genre, but I still brought the rigor of what, a contemporary art world would respect. Mm-hmm. And that was because I wanted to expand it and make sure that everybody from all walks of life can feel like art is for them and it wasn't just for like the elite.
Mm. I mean, I'm seeing some of the pictures that that's on your, I guess, on your resume, your profile on the net. It's pretty insane. I mean, like stuff like Death of the Sun. That's amazing. I mean, I was telling this to Neil before he came in. About 2 years ago, before it was called the Budweiser stage, it was the Molson Amphitheater. Drake was doing his regular OVO kind of thing that he does there pretty much almost on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
Was this the one that he had in the background? There was some art piece that he had in the background.
He's talking about the CN Tower piece.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tower was last year.
So, that was last year?
2 years.
Okay.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Okay. The stuff that you basically put, like Death of the Sun, that looks insane. Okay. And I saw the background on that. How does something like that just start getting birthed?
Oh, man. Well, I approached Director X to do a project with me. And it was for that very reason, right? Like I brought in, 2015 was the 10th anniversary of Nuit Blanche, like the art event I produced. And I brought in JR, who's like a really amazing artist who does a lot of work, with photographies and the streets. And what he does is he takes everyday people and he blows up their image and 20 stories high, like massive. So he makes you rethink, who do we look at, in terms of celebrity? Who do we give this homage to and respect to?
Right.
So I brought him in for the 10th anniversary to sort of turn everything around and celebrate the people. And while I was doing that, I just started to think about who's next. Who can I bring in that sort of changes the game? And, Nuit Blanche is a very temporal event. It's only 12 hours, right? So it starts at 7 p.m., finishes at 7 a.m. And I was like, you get really sad because you work on it all year. Like Neil says, I'm emotional. So you get attached to people you work with. Like we work on this all year and the event is 12 hours. So when you work with major artists, they come in and they bounce. So I remember feeling really down because JR had to leave, because he had to go film something with like Robert De Niro on Ellis Island. Like literally is what he said. Mm-hmm. So he left in the middle of the intersection at 4 a.m. And I was like, I just was so heartbroken. And I was sitting on the stage of City Hall literally. And, someone said to me, like, Nuit Blanche is like being on a film set. It's very intense. It's like, a lot of people, a lot of energy, a lot of huge projects. It comes in, it comes out, it's done. Okay. So then I started thinking about film. And I was like, okay, who can I go after that is in the film world? But with this added layer, because I noticed that so many people came out to JR's exhibition. Like we had these photo booth trucks and they went out to different boroughs in the city, like Scarborough, Saga, all these places. And people like my parents, participated in it and just different people from all walks of life. And I was like, we need to bring that back in. So thinking about film, I was like, listen, first I wanted to go after like Wes Anderson, like major filmmakers, and we tried to work with TIFF, and that didn't work out for whatever reason. And I started thinking about music video directors, and I didn't actually know X. I was out at like Revival or something, and a friend of mine, she's a dancer, she's like, do you know who that is? Like X and I were standing beside each other. And I looked over. I'm like, no, but he's wearing cool glasses because he was wearing these cool glasses. So she's like, that's Director X. He's really made a change for us, you know, people in Toronto. So I just looked at him. I was like, hey, man, cool glasses. And he's like, thanks. And then, I don't know, like that day when I was sitting on the stage after JR left, I was like, fuck, I really want to work with somebody in film and music. And I think it was the next day, I was just sort of staring out my window like this. And then the thought of Director X came into my head. And normally when I get a silent sort of thought, I really pay attention to it.
Okay.
Because it's like when your mind is meditative and calm,
right,
it comes from like the universe, you know, it comes from God, it comes from another place. So I've learned to listen to that. And so I just started digging deep. I'm kind of obsessive. So I started digging deep into the whole of X. And I started doing research on him, and I was on his Instagram, and I was like, yo, this guy actually has a lot to say. He's talking about, you know, science. He's talking about energy. X had been affected by gun violence, so he was talking about that. He was talking about, like, you know, just climate change and all these things. And I was like, this guy's very, very interesting. And so for me, when I'm obsessed with something, I just talk about it all the time because I know it's going to come to me. Right. So I got invited to a party that I wasn't supposed to be at. It was like a friend of a friend. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll go. And the chef, his name was Adrian Forte. His partner was just sitting on the couch, and I didn't know her. Her name was Flo. She just was beautiful. She was like Asian chick, long hair, kind of looks like me. And I said to her, do you know Director X? And she's like, yeah, I know him. And I said, do you think he would be interested in doing this thing I want to do with him? And she said, yeah, I think he would. And like 2 days later, X's manager was in my office in City Hall. So I pitched X's manager about it, and he was like, this is exactly what we're looking for. He's like, X wants to do art projects, you know, and we haven't really had an opportunity. So he set up a dinner with myself, X, and Taj, and another friend of mine from the city, and we were supposed to meet for like 20 minutes, and we ended up talking for 5 hours. And we really dug deep, and I told him my story, like how I come from Scarborough, because, you know, he needs to know who I am, and I understand that. Like, we had to build a relationship of trust, and I was like, look, I know I look like I come from these shiny towers, but I'm not from that place, and my purpose here to sort of change the game and have people like you have a seat at the table so that we can hopefully influence thousands of people around the world to know that art is for us too. And X was like, yeah, I'm totally in. So from then, we started building and working together. Like, I really wanted him to understand what the art industry is about, especially the contemporary art industry. So I started taking him around to, like, galleries, exhibitions, like walking around Ossington. I took him to AGO. I would send him videos all the time to be like, look at these things. Like, I want you to be well informed, because I feel like if I work with an artist, it's my responsibility to make sure they're a success, especially when we're doing something that's game changing. Like, if I'm going to bring X to the contemporary art world, the city, I want to make sure that he knows who he is within that playing field, and he understands the people around him, so he's not alone, you know. And I remember we were out at some show, and he's like, you know, I'm the only like black person here. And I was like, well, I'm the only brown person here, so we're here together, you know. So we started building this relationship of trust, and I would meet him at any time. That's the thing about what I do that's differently. I don't just wait for like office hours. You know, if X wants to meet me at his studio at 2 a.m, I go. Right. You know, I go where my people are at. And I don't know if it's because I have an anthropology background, but that's how it is. Like, you don't wait till they come to you. If you really care, you go to them. So
or you miss the opportunities.
Totally. And you have to show people that you care about who they are as a person, right? Like, not just who you want them to be. So I would go to his parties. I would go to anything and everything he was doing. I would just show up. And I think X believes, and I believe too, that's part of success. Like, you just show up no matter what. And that eventually they'll notice that you're there. So X and I just started building at all different times of the night. You know, he would call me and have a question about, what if I put this in City Hall or that in City Hall? And I'd be like, yeah, you're onto something. So, and then that could be at any point, any time, 4 a.m., 2 a.m. And he called me one day, and he was like, I went to the Science Center, and my son and I were really inspired by, you know, this galaxy, and I really want to do like the planets. Like, I want to build a solar system. And I was like, okay, interesting. I like this. Like, we're on to something here. And the other thing is, I fought for him to be at City Hall. Like, I believed in him so much. I went for the biggest real estate that Toronto has to offer, you know, and he was really honored by that. And so when he was like, I want to do a solar system, I was like, okay, this is really cool. And it's interesting. It's different. Like, I wanted to make sure it's not what you would expect from a hip hop video music director. And I liked where he was going with this. But I kept pushing him. a lot. And we had some bad fights, but because I wanted him to sort of dig deeper. And X is a very, very deep guy, but I wanted the story to be translated on a very deep level. And so I just kept picking away at his ideas. And I would be like, what is it about the solar system? And he was like, well, I really want all the planets all here rotating, or I want them citywide, and I want, Earth to be in City Hall, and I want Mercury to be in like North York. And I was like, yeah, X, like we can't afford that. Like I would just sort of squash his ideas with good intention to be like, you have one shot. You have that one time people walk onto the square. I don't want people to have to look for what you're trying to say. That's too hard. Let's make it easy for them. And then I would just say to him, like, what are you trying to say, X? And he would say to me, like, I just want people to know how small we are in the grand scheme of things. So I was like, okay. So then I realized size is a big deal, perspective. So we started walking around one day, and I said, well, what is the main part of the solar system if you could have one thing? And he was like, it's the sun. I said, okay. And I said, well, what if, like, how big? And he just started pointing to building. He's like, could I make it that big? And I was like, yeah, X, like, you can make it that big. And then his mind started to really expand. And then I think we had a really bad argument because I kept pushing him even more. And Todd was like, you're insane. Like, nobody talks to X like this. But, it's out of love, because I was like, dude, okay, so there's a sun. Now what? You can't, like, contemporary art, I'm like, artists are depressed. We need to make something depressing.
Right.
We need something dark. We need something like really meaningful that sort of grabs you and shocks you. And then he was like, well, what if it was the death of the sun? And I was like, yeah, that's the art. So it took us like 8 months to get there.
Amazing.
Yeah, but we did it.
Man, I'll tell you what's so incredible what you just said right now. I mean, we talk about this on the show all the time, about what it takes to get somewhere, and the work ethic involved to get there, right? A lot of times people would just look at the death of a son and say like, oh, wow, that's nice. I mean, that's really, really nice. But they don't see what it took to get there, right? Or somebody might say, I can do that, right? And they don't realize what it took to get there. Work ethic is huge, man. I mean, it's huge. And everything that you said, I mean, I know you mentioned the word obsessed. I don't even look at that word. I look at just work ethic, man. Yeah. You drove that and you grinded to make sure that, it could be what it was. And you actually, not even that, you pushed the envelope, right? Just when you thought, hey, you know what? It's good here. Let me just push it a little bit more. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I think just knowing Umbereen, she's very passionate.
Yes.
And it comes from a good place. And her and I had dinner a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about it. And this one story that she's sharing about X, she's got a bunch of stories about a bunch of people that are not as prolific as X,
right? That
did not do art installations at Nuit Blanche, that did things much smaller, quieter. But she's just such a genuine person, and I think that's sort of the reason why we vibe.
Yes.
After many fights,
right?
Because you said something earlier before she came out about how I like to connect people. Knew that.
Yes.
She's no different. And
right.
She has even for me, I'm trying to get into that world because I genuinely enjoy it, and listening to these stories inspire me to be, creative and sort of jump into this. And she's been so supportive of me with not asking for anything. So it's funny when she was saying how she was messaging X with all these things. She does the same thing to me. She's always emailing me, forwarding me, you got to be here, you got to do this, come here, come with me, check this out, let's do that, you should do this. And it's just genuine, just like a good soul. Right. So there's a good energy and vibe from her.
I feel that.
Thank you.
I feel that passion. I mean, and that energy is insane. It's contagious.
Well, that's where it goes back to that stamp.
Right.
Right. I think that my mission is bigger. It's not about my ego, it's about really making change for a nation and a world. Now I'm on a world tip. So I don't even see it as me anymore. It's like my great-grandmother, it's not what he did. It's not who he was, it's what he did.
Right.
So
I'll tell you something funny to tie into that. Yeah. So we've known each other for a while now. We've had a lot of battles. Is that the right word?
Lots.
So
that word's coming up a lot today. Battles and fights. Yeah.
So,
Passions.
Yeah,
that's good.
Fair enough. So, I think we are very similar in many ways, and so it's finding that balance, right, to where we get on the same level, which I think we are there. But I'll tell you a funny story. I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago, I had a client who wanted us to create something create an event. So I called Umbereen over, and this was to go over to a hotel suite and take a look at it, and it was for a wine brand. And she came up with this really cool concept, and the client kind of nixed it. It wasn't because they didn't like the idea; they just canceled the program. So I went back to Umbereen, and I'm like, listen, the client didn't like it. She was very, just upset because she put a lot into it. She came up with concepts and ideas and visuals, and she was sending me more stuff than she needed to because she just goes 100%.
Right.
And she was disappointed, which I was too, but she was visibly like upset, right? So I was like, look, I'm like, I feel really bad. Send me an invoice for your time. She got offended.
True.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
She was like, you cannot put a price on my integrity and my visions.
Yeah, it's true.
And you can't just buy me. And I was like, no, I'm not trying to buy you.
Right.
I value the time
Right.
that you put into this.
Right.
So I don't want you thinking I was just trying to use you or take
Yeah.
advantage of your time.
Yeah.
In the world that I come from, you pay somebody for their time because time is valuable. And she was like, it's not about money. So it took a little bit because she was offended.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, no, you should be paid for that. She's like,
Yeah.
I don't want money.
Yeah.
I want my
I
idea
still
to come
didn't
to
take
life.
money.
She didn't take money. But I bought her dinner.
That's good. Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
it's funny. And it wasn't about money for her. It was just being
No,
able to-
listen, I see both sides, man, and that's amazing. Like just to have that quality, it really is. It's actually a rare quality. I'll be honest, it's very rare. I can't. It blows my mind because I'm like that as well. I just to give. I mean, I threw it out there once. If you had the winning numbers to the lottery ticket, would you give it out? And some people are like, no. I mean, I want all the price to myself. But it's amazing when you have a quality to give, and that's what we need more of. Your background, I mean, speaking of giving, I mean, you give in many different ways. And I mean, obviously, one of your backgrounds is social services, right? How did you get into that? Like, and then from there, how did you say that now I want to get into the arts?
So I got into it having dealt with, shit growing up. Like I was the only Pakistani girl with a Muslim name in a Catholic school, and I'm not Catholic. My mom was just as stubborn as me. So she was like, no, I want you to learn about Christianity, but you're not a Muslim and you're not Catholic. So I was like, great. So when I was like 8, I was always meant to be different. I had a very different name, so I stood out. And I think I just grew up with a lot of shit, like bullies, like people that just didn't understand me and my family and all that. I grew up in Tuxedo, like, in the
Tuxedo
heart of
Court?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that area very,
yeah,
very well. Very,
real Scarborough.
Yeah,
And, I just dealt with a lot of stuff. And I actually met a social worker while I was in school.
okay.
And she really helped me. She was like, you know what? You're going through stuff because you're different. And she was like, she treated me like a human being. She's like, when you're different, not everybody understands you and they feel threatened. And when they're threatened, they get defensive. And I was like 12 or really young. And as soon as she told me that, I remember making a promise to myself that I was going to do that for somebody else. And I did. And so basically I went to school, like I applied to go behind my parents' back. I was like, I'm going to university. And they're like, what? Because my parents just wanted me to just do whatever made me happy. My sister's a hairdresser. My parents are cool. They don't pressure me about post-secondary education or any of that. And I didn't really care to go, except I just knew I wanted to make a difference. Like even when I was a kid, I was involved in every fundraiser you could think of. You know how they give you like internships in high school? Like I found my own. I called up the Toronto Rape Crisis Center and I was like, I want to work for you. I don't care about what the school's offering me. I was like 16 years old sitting in Jane Doe trials, like witnessing, taking notes. Yeah, I just found my own thing here. I was working in like women's shelters and stuff just because I wanted to. And basically I applied to go to university behind my parents' back. I got OSAP and I left. And I went to the biggest school I could find, which was Western. And again, I was like kind of alone there because nobody from Scarborough's in Western, like maybe 2 people. Like it's all rich kids. But I found my own tribe, and a lot of them were different, unique people, actually a lot of international students, because I loved their perspective, and they were like these expats kids that were very cultural and down to earth. So long story short, I started getting involved in theater. It's called Theater of the Oppressed. It's a lot of like vagina monologues, like feminist plays, all these things. But I still didn't think I was worthy. I just thought I was like hanging out, being creative. It took me like a couple people who believed in me, who were like, no, like, do you understand how smart you are just because you don't follow, the academic line? I always found a creative way to, get my way through university. And I ended up graduating on the Dean's Honors List, and my dad was like, "What's that?" And I was like, don't worry about it, Dad. You know, so it was never about the prestige. It was just more like just trying to find my way through things. And somebody had mentioned to me, like, you should apply for your master's. And I was like, me? Like, how the hell am I going to go and do my master's degree? Like, I'm from the hood, you know? So she's like, just do it. This Palestinian woman. She was like, just do it. She gave me like a 95 or something in my class, and she got in trouble, and she told me, like, yeah, in universities you don't give high marks. But she's like, I believe in you. And I really realized the power of those words. I would never have applied if she didn't say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I say that often to people.
Do you still connect with her?
Yeah, here and there. Randa Farr is her name. But I say that to people. I said that to X. X, I believe in you. And you have no idea how powerful those words are.
Sometimes being in a position like X, you don't hear that stuff. I mean, you get to a certain point and people think, right, that maybe they've heard it all. But it gets to the point, sometimes it's like, I mean, sometimes someone like needs a hug or needs to hear something because they're so disconnected from it, right? People already put them on a pedestal for everything. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. And well, we're all human, right? And you need that person who believes
Absolutely.
in you. And so someone said that to me, and I applied and I got in. And I was just like, I want to go to, do my master's in social work because I want to make a difference. And I'm a brown girl that grew up with all this stuff. And I didn't think I was going to get in. I was like, blah, blah, blah. But I did get in. And then I was like, shit, I better go do this now. So I went and did my master's here at U of T. I actually got in to do my master's in anthropology as well in Concordia, and I really had to weigh out my options. Like, do I go down the anthropological route and work in museums and galleries and do all that, or do I become a social worker? And I remember I made a promise to myself when I was a kid, and I was like, no, I have to go back because of what I went through growing up. So I did. I became a social worker. I got my master's. I specialized in psychotherapy, mental health, community development. And I did my internship you have to find internships. And I found one at York University, Counseling and Development Center. And I remember this girl I was counseling, and her name was Shirley. And her and I were talking, and she was this brown girl, and she was in theater, and I was sitting across the chair as her therapist. And she was like, my parents don't support me, and I'm an outcast, and I've been dealing with all this racism and all this shit. And I remember remembering that moment when I was in that other chair. And I said to her, like, well, you have an amazing name. Like, do you understand you're an artist? And I gave her examples. I was like, Gwyneth Paltrow's, named her kid Apple. Paris Hilton's name is Paris. Like, if you actually want to make it in the industry, Drake is Drake. You need a unique name. I said, my name's Umbereen. It took me like 20 years to even own my own name. And she was doing this theater show. And I remember her telling me, no, my parents have never come to my show. And I was like, okay. And something came into my head, that same idea, when I was quiet. And I said to my supervisor at the time, because they're all like clinical boundaries, I was like, I think I need to go to her show. And she's like, why would you do that, Umbereen? You're going to be violating boundaries between the client and the therapist. And I was just quiet, and I walked out, and I was like, I'm going to go to her show. So I ran across the campus, and I went to the building. I had no idea what room she was in.
Right.
I just looked and looked and looked and looked, and I saw her. I walked and I stayed in the back. And as soon as she was done her show, she's standing there alone. Everybody else is like being hugged and all this stuff. And she sees me, and she runs over to me, and she starts wailing, crying. Oh, man. And I just grabbed her and I hugged her. And I was like, fuck, I better go. I'm violating all kinds of boundaries right now. So I left, and then our sessions were ending.
Yeah.
And so she didn't come back because I know it's hard for people to say goodbye, but I found a card from her. And inside it, she gave me a locket, and she had my name engraved on that. And she said, thank you for helping me own who I am and my name. You have no idea what you meant to me.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like at that moment where I was like, okay, I've come like full circle of what I wanted to do in my life. And long story short, I still have that. And
jeez, man.
Through that time, I was seeing people that had dealt with all kinds of trauma, like Syrian refugees who were like, my house got bombed. Anyways, do I look fat? Like crazy things. And I realized when you're going through trauma, it's actually much more effective to use creative tools. Because instead of being like, can you walk me through that day when that bomb exploded? It's too triggering. Right. But what you can do is do storytelling. I was really interested in narrative therapy. And when we started storytelling, okay, tell me about this person. What happened to them that day? Then they would open up and tell me that story. Well, they were walking down the street and then this happened to them. How did they feel? Well, hurt. Like, so that was more palpable. And I understood the power of storytelling, and we would rewrite the endings to heal yourself. And that's part of narrative therapy. So long story short, I really realized that power, and I would have become an art therapist, but I wrote my own play and I started touring it around Toronto. It was the same thing, like Vagina Monologues, but brown people version. And I got all this press. I don't know why. I was like 23 years old. I was sitting on CBC. I could have become like a broadcaster, because they were like, Umbereen, what do you think about, violence against women? And
Right.
so after a while, I was like, that's not what I want to do.
Right.
But I just knew that I was outspoken, and I had to stand for it at that time when nobody was. They're like, you're crazy. Like, all kinds of shit's happening in the world, honor killings, all these things, and you're going to be talking about this on national television. And I was like, yeah. So I did that for a while. But I started being confused, like everybody else, on what I want to do with my life. I started to pretend I was, an anthropologist for a day. I pretended like I worked in a daycare for a day. I started volunteering everywhere I could, in all Harbourfront Center, the ROM, TIFF, like anywhere I could, women's shelters, because I was like, I felt lost again. I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was working 4 jobs. I was like doing my play in Toronto. I was working at this place called Alliance for South Asian AIDS Prevention. I was totally inspired by all these like South Asian gay people who were like, wearing saris and doing fashion shows. And so then I got involved in that. And I was like, this is cool. Like, how about we celebrate your life if you have HIV, as opposed to another candlelight vigil? Like, no offense to that. So I started producing these events where I got like people who have HIV, I would give them a camera and be like, go take photos. The Indian like lady boys, I'd be like, go, let's do a fashion show, wear your fucking saris, like rock your shit. Like, I just started getting sort of into my niche, because I was like, I want to see you celebrate life.
How old were you at this time that you were having this sort of
24.
They call it the quarter life crisis.
Yeah, I have it like every
no, but
years.
Yeah,
it's a real thing. That's why I asked. I was curious.
I've been
quarter life crisis.
I'm 38 now, so I've been in the game forever, just learning by doing.
Yeah.
So I started like feeling my way around, being like, listen, I like this stuff that I'm doing. I don't even know what it is. Like, I think I did a career like quiz on monster.ca, and it was like, you have like, there was no answer of what my career was. It was like, it was like, shit,
we can't help you.
Yeah. So in the meantime, I started working on the there's a sexual counseling line in public health, so I was working on that line as well. And I was like, okay, it was good, but there's a lot of like masturbators that would call, and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, because they like the sound of my voice.
That's another podcast.
That's for another day. And while I was being fed up by some guy who was like whacking it while I was on the phone, I was on like the job site for the city of Toronto.
Yes.
And there was the job for Nuit Blanche.
Right.
And I was like, I can't do this job. Like, why would they hire me? I come from the gully. I have a fucking master's in social work. I'm now working with HIV. I'm on a sexual health info line. And this woman beside me, and I think God planted her there, she was like, you need to apply. And I'm like, who are you? Like, you don't even know me. She's like, apply, put together a portfolio. She's like, just bring it. She's like, just bring it. So I was like, all right. She helped me she said, you need a functional resume. She's like, you don't have a regular resume, so I'll help you. And she helped me put it together, because I didn't think I was worthy. Okay. That's a part of growing up, and knowing you're worthy of greatness took me a long time, especially when you're from Scarborough and you've dealt with a lot of shit. So she was like, no, I believe in you. Apply. So I applied, and I didn't think I was going to get it. I just sat there. I was talking like the way I'm talking to you. I was like, look, I don't know anything about contemporary art, but I know that art is therapy. And I was like, that's it. People are engaging in art to heal themselves, and that is it. Whether they're writing a story, whether they're drawing a picture, whether they're cooking, it's doing something for them. It's doing something for their soul. They're making a statement with art. Through this storytelling, they're working through some stuff, and especially contemporary visual art is very political. So Mayor Miller had basically taken on Nuit Blanche at that time and dropped it on, city cultural events, and was like, hey, this thing that we just did as a one-off, 500,000 people showed up, so we're doing it. So the city was like, shit, we need the right person for this role, because council just approved the one hiring for this role. And I went for it, and I think there was about 500 people who applied,
Wow,
and I got
so
it.
amazing. That's so
And
amazing.
they called me. I was like, shit.
I'll tell you this.
There goes my like life.
No, I mean, having a background, like I told you, with the city, I've seen a lot of yahoos get jobs, man. And it's like, how did you even get this job? And I can tell you, like, for them to land you to do what you've done, they landed on a diamond.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
That's amazing.
Told you she's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you. So yeah, I was terrified. I was like, what the fuck what am I doing? Like, I always do this to myself.
Right.
I like
What am I
drop
getting into?
myself in these
Right.
things. And I walked into City Hall being like, I don't belong here.
Wow.
So yeah, I threw myself into everything. I had to learn about contemporary art. And I was like, oh, it's actually not that difficult. It's basically a rebellion against fine art, and fine art was only for the bourgeoisie. Like art was, you know, portraiture, and who did that? Rich people.
Right.
So basically this guy, Marcel Duchamp, like put like a wheel on the ground and was like, this is art.
Okay.
You know, you can't tell me this isn't art just because, you know, I'm not of your class. And that's
Right.
how contemporary art was born. So I was like, oh, cool. Like, I get this. Actually, contemporary art stands for the people.
Okay.
So that's it. And ever since then, like, nothing's changed. Like, I think I've done really well because, you know, I just sort of ask people, like, what do you stand for?
Right.
What's this piece about?
That's awesome.
And, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still here, man, 10 years later.
So I was going to say,
Yeah, go on.
when she was telling her story about art being therapeutic and whatnot, Jerry was thinking of you and what you do with your photography. You know, what's your thought on this?
Well, I have yet to be, and this is embarrassing to say, to the Nuit Blanche.
It's all good.
It's just because I work in the
Disgusting.
film industry, and I'm just always working. So I left work to come here to do this, and I'm going back to work again. So I think it's a great idea. I love what you do. I've seen the photographs of what people put out there. I think it's an awesome art show. And what everybody's doing, so I'm pretty interested. I'd like to finally make it one day.
Oh, he's an incredible
he's a
photographer.
photographer, yeah.
Oh man.
No, you don't want my stuff. You know, it's like all right.
No, but I mean, like,
I'm
what's
kidding.
your perception about what she was saying? How it's therapeutic, like just being able to immerse yourself in your photography.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Well, I grab my cameras on weekends just to go disappear. And I go down roads and into parks and places I've never been before. And that to me is my way of getting away, A, from the film industry. Or if I go to a racetrack to photograph NASCAR, I don't know what I'm going to shoot. I just shoot for the sake of shooting because I enjoy it. And it's my time down away from all the stress and...
It makes you feel something.
Oh, absolutely. Like my sister-in-law turned around. I photographed a tree in the middle of a field, and it was a dead tree. And my sister-in-law said to me once, I would drive by that tree 1,000 times and not even think about it. But the way you photographed it and presented it, all of a sudden it became art. So that's kind of how I see life in pictures. You know, not movies and movie pictures, but just in pictures. And I just like... There's always a picture within a picture. And if you take a moment to think about it and look into it, then all of a sudden beyond that, it's another photo, and there's something else there. So I don't know. I really love what you guys are doing out there from the photos that I see and what I see on TV. One of these days, I will actually make it there. Where's your office, by the way?
City Hall.
No, in City Hall, because I always go to the film office there. Are you guys close by, or?
6th floor.
Oh, you're at 6th floor. Okay, no problem. Photography is just one of those things that I talk to my friends about, and they say, well, I'm not as good as you. I said, don't try to be as good as me. I said, try to be as good as you can be, you know, and just enjoy it. I will teach you the basic rules, and once you know the basic rules, just go out and play. Enjoy the day.
See, and it's always that voice, someone telling you do something. You should do this. You should do that. So, I mean, that's been your story, right? Like several times, people telling you, like, you should go and do something.
See, my job would be what he said and to make it a story. Like,
Right.
that's what I do. So
No,
he comes with the passion, and I would be like, okay, like, let's figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you extract. That's a good
Yeah.
word, man. I love that.
Yeah.
So, look, I was looking at when I was doing a little background on you. There was a CBC clip that you were on, okay, and it was regarding minorities and the challenges that they face, okay?
I was like 21 or something.
Was it? Really?
That's a long time ago.
Well, check this out. A couple of weeks ago, we interviewed a guy who was an international correspondent. He's been on CNN, ABC, all these. And he was talking about, his name was Mohammed Leela, talking about how his name, just being a big barrier, okay, in general, where they get these stereotypes and typecasts. Now, we live obviously in a city which is one of the most multicultural cities in the world. However, a lot of people, and I mean, just take for granted that just by your skin color and your name, it already puts you in a disadvantage to someone else. And that's reality. That's reality. For yourself, did you have any experiences like that where, you know, either your name or anything else that you felt?
Absolutely.
So tell me,
Probably still does.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean,
Yeah.
tell us about that and what you've done to kind of like push on that, because you almost have to push harder. Do you know what I mean? In general, people in the office to get their promotions, they gotta, you know, do things differently just to be able to move past it. Because again, there's just, I don't know if you want to call it a conscious or unconscious bias, but it exists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really exists.
Oh yeah, I mean, God, like I said, it took me like 20 years to really own my name, and that's the sort of what happened with me and that girl in the therapist room, right? Because I was helping her own her name. But there's two worlds, right? There's the functional world, like, yeah, I get into trouble all the time when I'm traveling, you know, right away they're like, Umbereen, move to the left. We're going to make sure we strip search you. Everybody else keep going because I'm a Muslim name,
Right.
but I'm Christian. So it's got a double innuendo. My last name is tied to, a huge legacy. But that's a complicated history. There's so many layers, but your name is your lineage and who you become. And
Right.
that's why I love working with artists, right? Like, the weirder your name, the further you're going to go. And I love being around creatives because now it's not an issue at all. Like, my name, and, for me, I'm building my brand where my first name is, that's it. Like, someone said to me, he actually works with Andre 3000. He said, I saw that sign and I thought Umbereen. And I was like, fuck, this is working. My brand is working.
Right.
So now I've turned it into an empire. Umbereen, like
that's
X,
amazing.
like that's an empire.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm teaching other people to do, and
Very
I think
nice.
we're in a good place now that if you're a creative, your name is going to take you extreme. Like, there's a Jennifer is not going to get as far as like a Taban will,
Right.
Thank God we're in that.
Right.
But I chose the arts for a reason because I was always feeling different growing up.
That's good.
I only started to feel like myself when I was around other creatives.
Right.
So now I meet people and they're like, my name is Purple Sky. And I'm like, hey, what's up, Purple Sky? Like, I don't even react.
Right.
Because it's whatever you want it to be.
Right.
Whatever makes you feel good, man.
Absolutely.
So
I
I just feel like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say with the name thing, you said it took 20 years. It took me a very long time to embrace my name.
You have such a strong, like, Roman, Greek,
But think of it growing up.
Yeah.
Hey, constipated and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was just one. And to this day, people have a hard time with my name, right? So they
Yeah.
call me Const, or they, usually called me other little nicknames. But to me, it was one of those things. But right now, my son has my middle name, and my son, his middle name is my first name, but I love my name. You know what I mean? And I truly embrace it. But that's amazing to what you're saying, to kind of embrace it on that end.
We have to create a new wave.
Right.
Where, like, you want to name your kid Blue Ivy, your name's Blue Ivy.
Right.
What does that mean to you?
Right.
That's what like you said to me, what's your name mean?
Right.
And I think that we have to go against society and, like, change that. And constantly, like, my niece and nephew's name is Zoe and Blake.
Right.
Very different, very unique. And we need to make it, like, a constant effort to say, or I'll say to people, what do you want me to call you?
Speaking of knowing your names, do you know what your name means, Neil? Have you
Pain
ever
in
looked
the
into-
ass, like nail.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Really? How about you, Jerry?
No clue.
Wow. You should find out what it means. I mean, I know what my name means. It means steadfast.
Yeah, like strong.
Yeah. But I think we should find out what your names mean. I'd be very interested. Why don't you do a little
kneel
search?
down. Yeah.
I bet there's a cool origin to it.
I don't know. We'll have to find out.
We're going to find out right now. Jerry's going to come back with a report.
Well, Neil Forrester, I did not expect him to be half brown.
Neither did I until he mentioned that.
Yes, sir.
Is it your mom?
My mom. And it's funny because as we're kind of talking about, so again, as Umbereen and I became friends, we had a lot of similarities. Scarborough, growing up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I never identified with being half brown. Obviously, I don't look it. And on the weekends, I'd go to Flemington Park to my grandparents, and they'd cook
Lemo.
and they would cook curry. And I grew up on a lot of the cultural portions from the brown side. The first time I ever heard the N-word, I'm 42, so it's 1983 or 84. And one of our neighbors, teenage kid, comes out and says, your mom's an N. She was brown, but they don't know the difference, right? And I told my mom, and it's one of the only times I can count on my one hand when I've seen my mom get mad. And she lost it. And then I moved for a couple years to Ottawa, and Ottawa in the late, I was there from 89 to 92 or 93. Skinheads would walk up to her and call her a Paki.
Oh, my God.
Walk right up to her.
Yeah.
And so I never really personally, like Neil Force, I've never seen, racism or the advantages that I take for granted. But being around, my friends in Scarborough growing up or around my mom and seeing it, I'm like, I get it. I can empathize when I hear about the struggles that people have to go through with their names or their identity or their religion. I get it, But yeah, long story short is yes, I'm half Indian. I'm proud, and people always say to me, I don't believe you. My answer always is, who lies about being half Indian?
That's true.
It's not like I'm not trying to be cool right now. It's not the cool thing.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny the amount of guests that we've had on the show so far that have like stories or origins in Scarborough. I mean, it's really crazy.
We talk about Umbereen and I, and even Ash. Like we talk about it all the time. There's this weird sort of thing about Scarborough where I feel like we're the forgotten or like that stepchild of Toronto, of the GTA.
Right.
But there's this sort of like culture and this I don't know help me out here.
We're
but
real.
It's
We're
just
very real.
I mean, I grew up in Flemington Park, 20 years.
I was baptized at John the 23rd.
Were you seriously?
Yeah.
I went to grade 2 there.
Did you?
Yeah, grade 2. And then I went to a lot of schools. I went to Grenoble, Parvard.
My grandparents lived at 45 Grenoble.
Oh, that's where I lived, 45 Grenoble.
1702 is my
That's
grandparents.
I was 1504.
Shut your face.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Yeah,
Scarborough.
Yeah, there you go. But it's funny because, look, Scarborough does have this bad connotation. Like, oh, it's Scarborough. But, man, the amount of talent that's come out of Scarborough is on a whole different tip as well.
It's like Brooklyn, right? Like
The
nobody
Brooklyn
wants
of Toronto.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
It's like where the real stuff happens.
That's
'cause
right.
It's based in reality.
Man, that's nuts. So look, part of what we do is we want to inspire people. Okay, that's actually that's one of my personal things is like whatever I do in my existence, I want to inspire, I want to motivate, I want to lead people like through passion, right? And just kind of take them there. So for that person that could be listening or watching this, that sees the journey that you've gone through, that wants to get into something, what would be your advice to that person?
I would say be fearless in what, sets your soul on fire. And that's the truth. You have to be passionate about it. It has to be your life's calling. You have to figure out what that is and spend time. Like I literally sat and wrote my own bio for months. I would just put my name down and be like, what does Umbereen stand for? Okay, Umbereen loves, large scale, pieces of art that are meant to heal and inspire people on a global scale, merging music, contemporary art, pop culture. Boom. It took me years to get there. So I always tell people really dig deep and create that one line about you and then go after it like no one's business. Just show up and know that you're worthy of it because you are. And I tell people all the time, don't listen when people tell you that you need to walk in a straight line, or that you need to, go to school to become a doctor. Like a doctor can be a chef and an artist and an author, right? That's the world we live in.
Outside of the box thinking.
Absolutely. And those are the most successful people in the world.
Absolutely.
She to further what she just said, she shared with me when we first met her vision for Nuit Blanche and where she wants to take the direction of sort of arts with the city. And she's there. It's like what she shared with me.
Yeah.
And what she wanted to do, she did 2 years ago. And she's doing it more and more and larger and sort of she can talk about if she wants, but she said, this is where I wanted this, in the city, as being a city worker, there's there's the old guard in a sense, right? And let's play it safe.
Yes.
She wanted to really just be that young, sort of aggressive, no, let's change it up. Let's do this. Let's bring this in. Really going on her whole, attitude with the contemporary art thing and music and this. And she's crushed it and she's there. So,
and that's awesome.
So she's not just talking it, she's living it because I've seen it.
Well, come on. I mean, anyone can talk the talk, right? And how many people walk the walk? That's the reality, man. I mean, how many... Gary V. Speaking of Gary V, we have also Gary V here today as well.
Neil V.
Gary Vaynerchuk, he says, sick and tired of people just saying what they want to do. Just go and do it, right? Because what happens is you can just get into this routine of just saying, yeah, I'm going to do this. One day I'm going to do this. But that's all it is. It's just an idea. You never put it into practice. So the fact that you're doing it is amazing. And like I said, I mean, we just highlighted one of the pieces that you were part of, and there's a couple of them, man. They're really amazing. Let me ask you, what are you working on next? Because I know you're working on something.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say, though, just to jump back a little bit, is like,
Yeah.
you know, you hear people who are like, I worked hard and I made it. It's not easy. And that's another thing that we need to let people know.
Absolutely.
It is not easy.
How many times do you hear these motivational messages on Instagram and Facebook, and then people are like, yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely. The grind is tough.
The grind, the humiliation. Like, I've been kicked many times because of what I wanted to do. I've been like disinvited from shit. I've been like, you know, just
taken advantage of. We talk about that. She's so amazing.
Yeah.
It frustrates me the way people take advantage of her, because she goes into it being just like giving her all.
Right.
But not putting on her street smart glasses in a sense.
Right.
And then sort of being left out to dry.
And you know, now I'm foraging into the music industry.
Like
And
in what capacity?
just, you know, what I want to do next is merge contemporary art with the stage. So what we did with Drake,
Okay.
I want to continue doing that. You know, because I sort of got to Drake's stage and I was like, wait a minute, this is what I do. Like, this is a 20,000 person arena. It's in the dark. We have to make sure it's safe. It's engineered. We have to make sure it like goes with the whole entire concert and the vibe and the theme, and it changes. But yet it has to be striking. And I was like, and then these guys or women or whoever do things for the stage, and then where do they go after?
Right.
They go in the garbage, you know? So I was like, I mean, Drake's brilliant for, you know, inviting us to do that, and we did it. But now I have this itch because I produce something for Nuit Blanche, and I have, you know, it's sitting in storage a lot.
Okay.
So now my next goal in life is to merge the two, you know, is to take what we do for Nuit or public art, put it on the stage, and then bring that out right back to the public. You know, could the next thing, you know,
Globally.
That's
globally,
awesome.
right? Like, you partner with other cities, you know, whatever. Why can't what happened on Drake's stage go to, like, you know, Japan, Tokyo? Why can't it go in Abu Dhabi? Like, why can't this now become free to the public?
Yes.
But still serve his purpose, and for other artists too, right? So now that I'm seeing that there's a gap there, like, that's what I want to do next, and that's sort of what I'm working on now. If you're asking me what I'm doing next,
I mean, how are you gonna have time with the city doing all this?
I don't know. I'm gonna make my own. I'm gonna take my job, and
I mean, that's what
I'll
I do.
always help the city, no matter where I am.
Right.
Always, whether I'm physically there or not. I mean, that's where my heart is. So
For sure.
But my goal now is to help other cities, right?
Wow.
Like, why can't Toronto be out in the field?
Right.
You know, why can't something we made show up in Cape Town?
Right.
With a huge artist behind it. So the bigger the artist, the bigger the platform, the bigger your message. Everything I do is always tied to something good. There's always, and I think that's why I'm successful. I'm never about money. I'm never about consumerism. I'm never about anything. It's like, what do you stand for? Like, your shit has to stand for something that pushes society forward. You know, it's got to be something real. So because of that, I feel like, you know, what I do can have huge legs because it would represent Toronto, would help a major artist have art cred and just have that depth that the world needs, but yet be able to go global and show that the realness of who we are can be something that goes worldwide.
You know, there's this saying by Simon Sinek, and it's don't do business with people who want what you have, but do business with people that believe what you believe. And just hearing what you're basically being saying right now, let me ask you, does that quote alone, would you find the people that you've connected with to push out these incredible pieces, do you think it's people that bought into your vision, or a fusion of you buying into each other's vision?
I think we buy into each other's vision.
Yeah.
100%, right? Like, I stand for something, and whoever I attract, you know, there's obviously a connection there, there's chemistry there.
Right.
And then we learn from each other.
Okay.
You
Do you
know?
ever say no to people? Like, they come and say, hey, we want you to do this, and it's just like, nah.
Absolutely. I think he asked me to do a Halloween party. I was like, no.
Maybe.
So saying no is good. Saying no is good.
Absolutely. You have
Yeah.
to say no.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Because otherwise, what do you stand for if you're just going to do anything? Like,
Right.
I've said no to things, and trust me, I would have been very rich right now because it was against, you know, my moral compass. So
That's good.
yeah.
A lot of people say yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people say yes. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. How do people find you? If people want to find you, to make this movement we're talking about right now, this artistic fusion of music, if someone is out there listening right now, how do they find you?
Well, you know, it's not that hard, right? Like, you know, you can DM me on Instagram. You can find me at City of Toronto. So, yeah. There's lots of ways.
Okay.
Do you want to share what your handles are?
Sure. It's simple. It's at Umbereen.
Okay.
So it's at UMBEREEN. I had to add another E. But even on my website, like if you just click on it, contact me, it'll come to me. You know,
Okay.
I do have a manager now. Yay, I'm excited.
Nice.
Because last year, speaking of like hard work, I went through a burnout. Like I was working really hard. Like I had this strategy of like, I'm just going to work my ass off and then I'm not going to work this hard later. And that doesn't work.
Well, what happened? I think it's important to also recognize that because the sacrifice of going is that obviously health and also family and relationships and so forth and so forth.
Like, well, I think I sort of became an asshole. Like, so my sister was like, "You're not yourself," because I was grinding so hard. I was frustrated. I was like, "Why don't people get it? Why don't they see it? Why aren't they jumping on? Why?" And then, you know, my sister's like, "You're not yourself right now," because I was just jumping from like, I would go to like, a party and I would like, stand for this and talk about this. And I would leave that party because I got a call because someone needed help. And I went to this thing and I wasn't sleeping. I was like, you know, I had a lot of pressure on me, right? Like I have to make sure the city is a huge success. We were going to Scarborough last year, so I have to make sure Scarborough, my place, is a success.
Right.
Downtown is a success. I'm working with major artists. I carry their stress with me because we get very close. So I had, you know, a lot of pressure on me, and I think, I don't know, I was trying to build my own brand and do all these things, and what happened was I just started getting panic attacks. Like, Nuit came, and my artist was like caught in another country, like a case of mistaken identity. I was like, fuck, you know, of course that's going to happen with me. Yeah. So I had to be on the phone with like consulates and all these things trying to prove that he was who he was. And it was just, I wasn't sleeping. And I think that was just the thing that broke the back. So I did it. Obviously, like, Nuit was great. I'll never let my work suffer, but inside I was suffering. I was definitely stressed out. Like I was getting panic attacks. I just wasn't, like, I was just getting anxiety. So
what are you doing now to kind of like, you know,
oh my God,
level the playing field?
I started to do self-care.
Okay.
Like sleeping, I started seeing like an acupuncturist. I started floating, any fucking thing you could think of. Energy work. I started doing yoga, hot yoga. I thought it was a luxury. I was like, why would you get a massage? What did you do to deserve this massage? Like I literally, that's my brain worked. You know, I went on 3 trips where I just did nothing. If I went on a trip my entire life, I'd be like looking at art. You know, I'd be out and about, going to every museum.
Still working.
Because I thought that you had to deserve to chill.
Right.
And now I realize the importance of chilling. So I meditate. I try and chill every day, you know, to bring that balance up because I don't want to get to where I was. It scared me enough. And now I'm better, thank God. But burnout is real. And I tell people that when I do talks now. Like I did a talk at Ryerson the other day. And I was like, guys, make time to chill. Trust me, it's not a good look if you start feeling like you can't breathe, you know. And I was angry a lot, like, you know, like Neil said, like I've been taken advantage of a lot. And part of it's because what I let happen, you know, I wasn't smart, and that's why I got a manager. Wow. So thank God I have this amazing new woman who deals with my own personal shit, and she works with Masai Ujiri from the Raptors. Nice. She does Giants of Africa. Like she's worked with Obama. She's a boss. I was like, Neil, I want you to manage me or her. And she came through. And so now I feel like someone's looking out for me. And for the first time in my life, maybe besides Neil, she said to me, I believe in you. You know, This was like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, fuck, I haven't heard that in so long. Because I've been saying that for 10 years to other people that I'm cultivating. And to hear her say that to me, and she works with fucking raps, I was like, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's part of self-care that I learned. I need someone in my corner.
Very important. Very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of, when we talk, I kind of like get on her because I'm like, you know, you're so selfless. You give to everybody else. And you have, I think her biggest frustration is she wants to give more of her creativity to the world. But she's giving too much of it to other people and they take advantage of her. And I'm like, stop. Mm-hmm. You know, like we got to really help build you. Yeah. You know, and so I believe in her, man. She's incredible. You know, she's been, you know, I think I mentioned in the last podcast, I've really sort of I've always had a passion for the arts. Yes. That's how we met at that first show that I did years ago, which was just something I did for, and it was just for fun. Like I was just, you know, but she's really kind of guided me and opened some doors and just introduced me to people and explained the industry and sort of really helped me as well.
You know, what's amazing is obviously I know this connection, and I've seen already some of the people that you know in the circles, and I've met them. You know how important it is to be around good people, like positive people.
Yeah.
To have negative people around you, no time for that.
You know what's really funny though? We got to this good place now, but we didn't talk for like what, a year?
I think like 2 years.
Really?
In the midst of it all, there was just I think I don't know what the right word is, but we didn't talk for a year. We had a fight. And
Really?
fought out and, yeah. But I reached out actually, which is like something I don't do. And I'm not the guy to reach out. I'm usually just like, all right, it's done. Close the door. We're finished. But it wasn't an issue over money or anything, like it wasn't anything really deep. You know what I mean? It's more something just silly.
Well, the important thing is that we're all here now.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it sometimes, through your deepest, darkest moments or your biggest, sometimes they say you learn more from your biggest failures than you do from your biggest successes. So just using that, I mean, I think we had to sort of scrap it out a little bit to get to the place where there was more of a mutual respect for each other. And
Okay.
Well, I think we were trying to figure out what we were about, right? Because he's a very powerful person, so am I. And when you have two powerful people in a room, you're kind of not sure what each other is about, but you're attracted to each other's spirit.
Right.
I think that's what's happening with us. Like, I'm like, yeah, I get you, but who are you really? So you make assumptions about somebody, and at the end of the day, we're all human. So I think we've connected on a human level, but there was a battle of like.
And she's, as you can tell from her education and her past professions, she's a very deep, spiritual, emotional person. I'm not. Like I'm just not an emotional, spiritual guy.
Right.
So I didn't understand her. It was like when she would talk to me, sometimes I'd be like, she's nuts. What's she talking about? No, but she's not, and she's not. It's really me just being emotionally detached.
Desensitized.
I was like, can you not be dead inside, please, today?
But she's definitely sort of like brought me over by just, like I'm saying, like we'll go to like an art show and she'll explain things to me. And it's just the simplest thing, but you get it. You understand it. It opens your mind up.
Right.
So I feel like in the last, I'd say 2 years, where we've really been talking about the art thing, it's changed me as well.
That's amazing.
My mind's opened up to understand things and take things in and respect them and all that. So she's definitely sort of helped me open up a bit too.
That's amazing.
The therapy.
Yeah, there you go, man. Absolutely. I was going to say that.
Yeah, he'll call me and I'll drop everything. Like, you call me to do a strategy session, I showed up.
Oh, yeah.
And I give, like, Neil, this is what you have to do to be a success.
Right.
And I just feel like, why wouldn't I do that for you?
Right.
And if people were a little bit more open, the thing is, it's confidence, right? Like, some people are so scared to, like, give away their craft because they think someone else is going to take it. And it's like, no, there's way more where that came from.
Yeah.
And hopefully more people are like that.
Absolutely. Man, I want to really thank you for coming down today. Like, the passion is evident, man. I mean, it's amazing, and I'm really, really happy that you actually introduced us.
What I think we should note is it's our first female guest for you guys too.
You are. I'm having a hard time trying to connect, man. I want to get some more people here, because the thing is, there's a lot of. By the way, I was telling this to Mike yesterday. I was just going through the analytics. 54% of our audience are females, and I mean, I think it's amazing for them to hear a story like yours. And the many out there. It's inspiring.
Oh my God,
You know what I mean?
We'll get you more.
Yeah, come on, let's do it. Like my daughter, she's 13 years old. And there's a lot of really cool like commercials and stories and female empowerment. And it's important for them to see that even in our industry, in the security industry, like Christina's obviously one of our amazing personnel. Like we're looking for more and more people to kind of represent.
You know what? Like, I think it's just reaching out. Like, it's just as simple as that. Like the other day when I met Charlotte, she's a big singer, and I just went up to her and I was like, I like your look. You're fucking awesome. I just thought I would tell you that. And, now we're meeting up on Friday.
I mean, if I said that, she'd probably be like, security.
No, man. It's just being like, you're really cool.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, being so open about it, and it actually works.
Right.
So if there's anybody you even want, just reach out to them or tell us, and we'll reach out to them for you.
I appreciate that.
I actually, because we were talking after the last podcast that I did, and I said, I go, have you had any women on? And he goes, dude, that's what we want. We want women. We want women. So I'm
We'll
glad
look
that.
you up.
Listen, I appreciate that.
I believe in you.
Listen,
I'll get,
oh man, look at that.
I'll
Life has
get you
changed.
whoever you want because you have good intentions.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and for us, really, like I mean, earlier back we talked about, we're trying to make a big difference in the city. I mean, around the world, but in this city, there's just so much, and I think if we can just reach out to that person, I guarantee you, someone is going to hear this. And it's going to change them. I guarantee
I
it.
hope
It's
so,
going to
man.
happen. And to me, that is what my drive is. That's the whole part about inspiring people and seeing to that. So I'm so happy you came down. An
Thanks,
amazing
man.
story. It's nice to see we got some fellow Scarboroughians in the town. You know what I mean?
It's too bad you didn't get to meet Mike, who I believe is also a Scarborough, but he's
For
a
sure.
really good guy.
Absolutely.
I think women need to know that there's a place for them everywhere, right? Like I'm in the
100%.
game, I'm in the art game, and I'm in the music game, and that's a game that was not for me, you know. So I want to make sure that women out there know that
Amazing.
anything you want to do, you can pave your own path and like fucking set it on fire.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it.
Like the sun.
Well, thank you so much, Umbereen.
Thank
I can't
you.
wait for what the future has in store and for the lives that are going to be changed.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thanks for coming down.
Neil. Yeah.
Amazing. Again, thank you so much. Oh, by the way, before we kind of wrap this up, Jerry, did you find out what Neil's name means?
Yeah, just a second here. It's Gaelic, and let me just pull it up here again.
Come on.
I'll give me a sec here. It's a masculine given name of Gaelic origin, but it also has a meaning of passionate or champion.
Oh, there you, and that
Nice.
speaks to you, man.
Very nice.
That speaks to him too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That will be the tattoo I get on the back from Lee Baxter's.
There you go, man.
But you need
There
a
you
tan.
go.
Like, why are you so pasty?
I know.
Can we work on this?
I know.
Yeah.
I'll go fake and bake
Please.
tonight.
There you go.
Please.
Beautiful. All right, awesome, guys. Thanks very much. And
Listen to this
that's a wrap.
episode on iTunes and Spotify. Make sure to drop by next week. And don't forget to subscribe.
Let's go.
It's time to give a shout out to our sponsors. This podcast is brought to you by Sentinel Security Plus. For all your premium security needs, visit sentinelsecurityplus.com.
And The Substance Group for all your integrated marketing solutions. Visit thesubstancegroup.com.
Next week on Standing in the Six.
Well, good morning, everyone. We have the amazing, I'm going to say this properly right now, Tom Caldwell. Did I say that perfectly?
Perfectly.
It has like a British, kind of
You know,
vibe to
it's
it.
not a hard name to say.
No, but you know what? I always mess up names. And I mean, sometimes like, how did you pronounce it like that? You know what I mean?
Well,
You
to be fair, I mean, a lot of people struggle with the name.
Yeah,
Right.
Tom,
I'm
Tom
not
is
exactly
hard.
sure
Tom is
why.
hard to say.
Yeah.